Okay, you guys can have a seat. All right, everybody, we are so excited to have you guys here for the Ascend Retreat. We have been preparing for each and every single one of you. The servants have been laboring for many, many months. I'm not going to be up here forever, so we just want to keep things moving tonight. So first off, we have Tasoni Delia from St. Justina to come up and give us a little introduction to the retreat. So without further ado, Tasoni.
Hey everyone. So happy and excited to have everybody here. I know we have some still lingering in, but welcome. This is our second retreat, but you may think, well, is this a diocese retreat or is this what kind of retreat? But this is a retreat that's in collaboration for two churches in our diocese, St. Mary and St. Athanasius Church and St. Justina Church, and we're so happy to come together with one spirit, one goal, one purpose is to bring all the youth of the diocese together for hopefully a nice spiritual retreat, a good time to kind of get away from the world for a few days. I know I'm certainly waiting for that. Anyway, so again, very, very excited to have you guys. So happy that you're here. If you were with us a couple of years ago, we were here with Abuna John. I don't know if anybody knows Abuna John. He was the shepherd of St. Justina Church for the past 20 years. And he always loved the church. The youth. He loved the church, of course. He loved the youth very, very much. And Archie Mark can attest to that. And this would please him so much. He was so excited last time. He had so much fun, and I hope that spirit, you guys come together with that spirit to have fun and to benefit and to make new friends. And we are so blessed to have our wonderful fathers with us, Abuna Daniel and Abuna Elijah for the first time. And of course, Archie Mark. We're so excited, and I know we're expecting a few of our other fathers to come. Anyway, I'm not going to sit up here and talk too much. I just wanted to welcome everybody and to say, I'm so happy that you're all here, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. I don't promise that I'll know your name, so please have your tags out so I can remember. But so happy to have you guys, and I hope this is going to be a blessed and beneficial retreat for everybody. Thank you.
All right, how's everybody doing? Thank you. So my name is Jonathan.
And my name is Matthew.
I'm from St. Justina.
And I'm from the upper room at St. Mary and St. Athanasius.
And we're going to be your co-MCs for the retreat. So we're very, very excited and happy to have everybody here with us. Obviously, we're here to meet new people, meet the people we already know, engage in fruitful conversations, learn, all that stuff. Just want to be mindful of, the rules that the retreat has set out. Obviously, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. Everybody is an adult, and we're on a Coptic retreat, so it's pretty self-explanatory what goes and what doesn't go. We're not going to be, the bad guys here. Don't make us be the bad guys. But, we're just here to have a good time and learn.
As you guys can tell, the servants have been putting a lot of effort, like I said earlier, into the merch and especially into the app. So we want you guys to be checking the app frequently. It's got the schedule. On the last tab of the app, there's like the important links tab. It's the third one. It has something called questions and concerns. And so there's 3 of those. There's a form. There is a text message option, so you can tap that button and it'll be a text message. And there's a phone call. When you tap any of those options, it'll go to like 10 different servants at the retreat at any hour of the day. If you have a concern, if there's something going on in your cabin, if you just have a question or something's going wrong, whatever it is, call, text, fill out the form. Someone will get back to you guys very, very quickly and we'll be able to resolve that. Also, if you guys are having trouble logging into the app, after the first talk, we'll have Daniel Salib in the back. And shout out to Daniel, by the way. He's the guy who built the entire app in about a week. So, So Daniel will be in the back, and he'll be helping the people who have been having trouble logging in. We'll get you guys all squared away. So that's it. And then
Yeah, we're gonna be learning the servants wrote up a really cool theme song for the retreat, and we're gonna start learning that.
so you guys can stay seated because we're still learning. So they're gonna do a little bit of teaching and stuff. So the first time we can all kind of get the hang of it. So you guys can stay seated, and the team will kind of come up and lead and try to participate and learn it.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So this is the theme song, and it's called "Can the Lord Truly Work?" And it's a really wonderful song because it actually talks about a chapter from the book of Joshua, and it was when Joshua was leading the children of Israelites into the Promised Land, and they encountered a very big problem, and it was the fact that the Jordan River was right in the way, right? So they were wondering, like, what do? We got the Jordan River like right in front of us. And believe it or not, this was the second time that the waters were parted in the Old Testament. You guys remember the first time was Moses, right? At the Red Sea. This was the second time that the waters were parted. But there was one prerequisite. And the one prerequisite is that Joshua told the individuals, the Israelites, that you have to sanctify yourselves first in order for God to do wonders among us. So this retreat, our job is very simple. It's to sanctify ourselves. And what that means is to set ourselves aside for God to work in us. How to set ourselves aside for God to work in us is really what this whole retreat is all about, is what it means to ascend and to rise to God's call. So we really love this song because it's a conversation and it's a dialogue with God. So for the first time around, let's try to learn it together, and hopefully it catches a little bit of our attention, and hopefully over time it can really be a prayer. Okay? All right, let's try it. Let's go with the verse first, which says, "Can the Lord truly work?" Can the Lord truly work? Can the Lord truly work by crafting wonders in His hand? If I seek Him in devotion, will He answer and grant me sight? Can the Lord truly work by crafting wonders in His mind? If I seek Him in devotion, will He answer and grant me sight? Indeed, 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 our Lord proclaims, He sanctified through toil each day. Tomorrow I shall work through Thee and do wonders, wonders among you will see. Can the Lord truly work in sanctifying my body with all its weaknesses and sin? For His Spirit within it dwells. Can the Lord truly work in sanctifying my body with all its weaknesses and sins? For His Spirit within it dwells. Indeed, 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 our Lord proclaims, Be sanctified through toil each day. Tomorrow I shall work through Thee and do wonders, wonders among you will see. Can the Lord truly work by using
skills, dedicating all my life to Him, for the glory of God's name. Indeed, 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 our Lord proclaims, be sanctified through toil each day. Tomorrow I shall work through thee, and do wonders among you will see. Indeed, 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 our Lord proclaims, be sanctified through toil each day. Tomorrow I shall work through thee, and do wonders among you will see.
Good job, you guys. This was a hand to you because you sang along, and hopefully after 3 days, this song can just repeat itself as a prayer. And whenever you doubt that the Lord can truly work in us, remember this verse. Indeed, indeed, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among us. Always have faith and hope that God is much greater than our abilities, our capabilities, our thoughts, our anxiousness, and all of that. He's much greater. So, looking forward to a wonderful retreat with all of you guys. Thank you.
All right, guys. So we're going to get started with our first talk. Obviously, I think every single person in this room probably knows the speaker, Archdeacon Mark Solomon. He's an excellent speaker, obviously a fan favorite, and he really has a heart for the youth and for the youth services. So he's going to kickstart us tonight with the first talk of Ascend.
All right, welcome everybody. Oh, there you go, thank you. Is this controlling it? Okay. And what do? I just touch it? Swipe, all right. That should be easy enough. Of course, it's very intimidating to stand in front of, whatever number of people are here. Lots of people gave me some good advice, like try not to suck. So I'll try not to do that. Anyway, all right, we'll just kind of continue. So before I start, I just want to wish all of you a blessed retreat. I hope you guys get a lot out of it. Of course, it's a time to meet new friends and I know it is hot. I'm hot too. And meet new people and go outside your comfort zone and meet some people you didn't think you wanted to meet, but it turns out that they're not bad. So these are the people that are here. Those are the people. And then some more shout outs to Sony Delia, Mary Vandenbush, Ra'id, and our very own Mina. So these are the servants who behind the scenes have just done so much work. So could we give them please a hand? On the, before you all got here, they had a prayer meeting, and honestly, just hearing their prayers for all of you, it just humbled me. It just made me realize how little I am in all of this, and I just hope that God speaks to each of you the way you need to be spoken to. Some of you need to be yelled at. So the schedule is, that. Today's first talk, and I want you to see what I did there. See how that just rolled in? Thank you. Thank you. The need for depth. So we'll start there, and you'll kind of see where we're going with everything as we go. And so the idea of the retreat is to ascend. And as you've all seen, when you build a building, before you ascend and build a building, you build a foundation. And so what I'd like to talk about for the first two talks is foundation and depth and this concept, which I think is just very, very important. So this line from Jesus, and so before we begin anything, why did he say, give me a drink? Right? And if you start thinking about, what happened there, why does God ask us for anything? Right? So think of all the things God wants you to do, right? All the things in the church, fast, pray, go to church, agbeya, etc., etc. And then you're supposed to like not hurt other people. You're supposed to love other people. You're not supposed to cuss. You're not supposed to drink. You're not supposed to do drugs. All these things that you're not supposed to do. And the question is, why not? Why does God ask us for these things, right? And it really comes back to this verse, give me a drink. Guys, come in. There's plenty of room up here in the front. First few rows, lots of space in the first few rows. And the question has to be, asked why God asks for a lot of things. So why did God ask Samson not to cut his hair? Why not? So he can give him superhuman strength. Why did he ask the disciples to take the boat by themselves before the storm came? So that they could see him walking on water. Why did he ask the disciples to preach without a staff? So they could see his power. Why did he ask Elijah to ask the widow for the last piece of bread? So that he could fill her vases with flour and oil unlimited. So the point I'm trying to make is God doesn't ask us for things. God doesn't need us for anything. Right? God wants to give. And so that's the first thing. When we start talking about the need for depth, God's here to give us. He doesn't need anything from us. You've all heard me talk about my kids and how worthless they are to me. Right? You don't need kids. Kids don't do jack for you. They take money, they take resources, energy, they hurt your feelings. Nothing's good. Right? Other than Gregory, right? So just the other two. Anyway, so one of whom is here, right over there somewhere. So, all right, we're gonna stop. All right, so kids, what do you do for your parents? Nothing, right? You just take, okay? And so God, like your parents, just wants to do what? Give. And so, why did Jesus ask the Samaritan woman for water? Did he ever get any water? Did he need water? Right? He wanted to give her living water. He had no intention of getting anything, but he asked for something very, very small because he wants to give. And that's the reason depth is important. Why did Jesus ask Peter to borrow his boat to give a sermon? Because he wanted to fill it with fish. That's the point. You let me have your boat for 10 minutes, I'll give a little talk, and then you win the lottery. I fill it with fish, such that it almost sinks. And later, Jesus closes the loop, by the way, on this particular point, especially with Peter. Can anyone think of what I'm thinking of? Huh? Not just fishers of men. What does Jesus do a little bit later, especially with Peter? He actually lets him know, I didn't need your boat after all. What did he do? He walked on water. So even though I borrowed your boat, I really didn't need it. And so every time we do something for God, right, the conclusion here, God doesn't need us. God is complete in his godhood without us. We can add nothing to him, right? The only thing that binds him to us is his love for us. Just like a father and a son or a mother and a son. Right? That's the only thing that binds. And so that's very important because every once in a while we get in this very, very mistaken belief that I'm doing something for God. I went to liturgy a couple of times. I already went twice this month. What is God? I already fasted for him. Right? I've given him a bunch of things. I've given him money. I've given him tithes. I've given him my time. I've given him my service. And we think we're giving God. And that's not the point. Let's think about this one. That's an icon of the wise man building his house on the rock, on the solid ground. And in modern times, right, you've all seen a building go up. It takes forever. If you ever watch a building in one of those fast, time-lapse movies, right, the foundation just takes a really, really long time. And you're like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, boom, the building just goes up, right? All that work is in the foundation. That's where we need to be as Christians. It's in that foundation. It's in that digging deep. And I'm going to talk about the importance of that. Why is that important? Because in this parable, he says, the winds will come and the rain will come and the house that's on the sand falls. So here's the point. The wind comes and the rains come. The storms are coming for all of us. Some of you have seen the storms. Some of you know people in storms. Some of you have watched your parents go through storms. Storms come, right? Jesus promised it. In the world, you will have tribulation. So what he's telling us is, he's not saying, hey, I need stuff from you. You got to do stuff for me. I got to serve the church. I got to help out Abuna. I got to help out. No. You got to build on solid foundation because storms come. The bad stuff comes. The hard stuff comes. And the house on the sand falls. And so he wants to give you strength to withstand what's coming. Another parable of the sower. You guys remember this one? 4 grounds. There's one particular verse that I really like. It says, some fell on rocky ground, rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. Did you ever notice this? So the seeds that were on the shallow ground where the rocks were sprang up quickly. They grew faster than the seeds on the good earth. Interesting. Why? No depth. No depth. They just pop right up. And sometimes I worry that in the church we have this phenomenon. We throw a good seed, but there's a lot of rocks there. And then what happens is we sprout up. And all of a sudden, hey, I'm lead this, I'm lead that, I'm serving here, I'm serving there. But wait a minute, we need to dig first. Right? You build a house without foundation, it falls. You throw a seed on the rocky soil, right? And I want you to look at the verse. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched. Conclusion, the rocks in the soil prevent the depth. And so we're going to talk about rocks today. We got to get the rocks out. Because when the rocks are there, the roots don't grow. I remember once when I was like 12, my dad was into Italian cypresses, right? So our backyard had these long cypress trees, right? And we planted all of them at the same time, and one of them wasn't growing as fast as the others, right? They're all the same height except for one. So we started putting like fertilizer on it and more water and trying everything. Couldn't figure it out. And so my dad's kind of poking around, trying to figure out what's going on. And as he poked, he realized there's a rock, he hit something underneath the roots of the cypress. Turns out there's this big rock underneath the root of the cypress. So the roots had grown, they hit the rock, they kind of stopped, right? And I'm not a botanist, right? But this much root supports this much tree, and when the roots stopped growing, the tree kind of stunted a little bit. So we dug around it, we pulled out this rock with the help of some people, and eventually this thing caught up with its friends, right? Those rocks keep us from growing. We're going to talk about them today. All right, so the most important part of this story about Jesus telling Peter to catch a bunch of fish is he said this line, I want you to go out into the deep. Because you see, there's no catch in the shallow part. Now, you guys know how these nets worked back in the day, right? They didn't have rods and reels like we do now. They threw one of these like lame nets out there, like it's like a circular net. I've actually fished like this. So you kind of have to see the fish, right? You see fish, they're kind of right there. You throw a net at them, okay? You hope the fish are stupid enough to stay in that spot. And then the net just kind of comes around them. The fish are like, what's going on? And then you pull the thing, right? And that's how you get the fish, okay? So you can imagine when Jesus says, throw the fish out into 200 feet of water, you have no chance of catching fish, right? But what he was trying to tell his disciples is there's no catch in the shallows. And it's a nice metaphor of our spiritual lives. It's a nice metaphor for all of our lives. We love to stay in the shallows, right? I see it every Sunday, right? We go to church. Hey, how you doing? Good, good. How are you? Good, 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 good. Hey, great, right? Everybody's good, right? Nobody wants to talk. Okay? Everyone's life sucks. Everyone's got problems, right? But nobody's talking about it. It's all good, good, yeah, good, good. Where are we? Shallow. I don't want to open up to you. I don't know you. I don't trust you. I don't know what you're going to do with that information. So I don't talk to you. I stay superficial, right? So we do this at work. We do this at school. We do this in our lives all the time. We stay in the shallows. right? And in our spiritual lives, we love to stay in the shallows. Hey, Abuna, hey, how you doing? Good, good. I'm part of this, meeting. I'm part of this thing. But where's the depth? I don't want deep. Sadly, for Christians, there's very little in the shallows. There's not much there. So I want you to remember, consequently, many fall away and leave. So what happens to you guys, and this is our fault as a church, is we allow you to stay shallow. We don't go very deep. We do some stuff for you, you stay shallow, and then what happens? The sun comes up, right? You graduate college. You're like, hey, there's girls out there. There's guys out there. There's booze out there. There's fun out there. And the winds come, and the temptations come, and then all of a sudden you get burned. Or the rain comes, and the storms come, and you're like, time to fold. I'm out. And that's what happens. And the reason that a lot of you leave, and we're going to talk a little bit about this tomorrow at lunch, is there's no depth, right? We've kept you at this shallow level, and then when the stuff hits, and it does, we fall away. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I became a man, I set aside childish ways. Sorry, my voice is starting to... Too much talking. So in the church, we have lots of things for kids. We got like VBS, we have Sunday school, we have little hymn classes, we do plays, we take them on retreats, we take them on camps, we verfischum, okay? And we do lots of these little cute things, right? And then you guys become teenagers, and there's a little bit less. There's a retreat here or there, there's a thing here or there. And then you guys get married, and there's nothing, right? Just attend the sermon till you die. And that's really all you have going on, right? And unfortunately, what that does, it makes us think the church is childish. The church is for the kids. I've even heard adults say things, crazy things, like, oh, well, I don't confess anymore. I'm an adult now. Right? And you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insinuate that you still sin like I do. Right? So what's happened is we tend to think that the church is for kids. It's really not, right? Christianity is an adult religion. I'll say it again. We just do the kid stuff just for fun. Gives us something to do. Being a Christian is about being an adult. It's about depth. That's where the real deal is. That's where the rubber hits the road in the Christian life. And if you remember, if you've read your history, right, initially, baptism was only reserved for adults. You couldn't get baptized as a kid because they'd be like, well, you know what you're getting yourself into, right? And the church wouldn't baptize kids. And at some point in the history of the church, we said, you know what? It makes sense because you've got families and you want kids to kind of attend the mysteries and attend church, and we want the families to attend. So we're going to start to baptize kids. There's pros and cons to that decision, right? And we chose it, and it's a good decision because, that way kids are involved in the church and they're there. But then it loses that sense, right? Because all of you are kind of cradle Orthodox, right? You're born into it. You're sick of it. You're by the time you're 16, like I've been here a million times because I haven't accepted it as mine, right? And it's kind of childlike, and I sang all the songs, and I did the plays, and I wore the white shirt with the red ribbon, and I did all that stuff, and I'm kind of bored. I'm kind of over it, right? Why? Because we stayed shallow. So how do we get stuck at this shallow place in church? We remain at the lower levels of Orthodox participation, and I'm going to use that word specifically, Orthodox participation. Why do we get stuck there? First thing, it's easy. It's easy. It's easy to be in the shallows. It's easy to pretend I'm holy. It's easy to just show up to church, right? I mean, think about it. All I have to do is go early. Like one day a week, I wake up half an hour early. If I get there before Abuna, everyone's like, man, you're so good. I'm like, I know. I'm amazing. I got there before Abuna. Like, wow. Can I kiss your hand? And that's a piece of cake. Or when you're fasting, especially when people are around, you read all the ingredients. Like, 14th ingredient has whey. Not for me. Right? Easy. Right? This stuff is not hard. It's good for our egos. I love to stay in the depths because I can kill it at the depths. I can be a rock star Christian. In the shallows, sorry. Right? It makes me feel good about myself. I can shine. I can be the superstar deacon. I can be the superstar servant. I can be the superstar, lead, whatever. I'm shallow. Last thing, there's very little struggle there. I mean, think about it. In Arabic, there's this wonderful expression, لو هتتقرب هتتجرب. Right? If you get closer, you're going to get tried. And I can't tell you, people have said that to me. I tried getting closer and I couldn't take it. So I'm done. This happened, these difficulties happened. Right? You can imagine, right? Satan's loving shallow. He loves you in the shallow. He wants you to be in the shallows. Right? And if all you care about is getting to church half an hour earlier than having a big ego about it, he's like, yeah, I'll wake you up. I'll be your alarm clock. So some of the symptoms, and you all know these symptoms. I attend services without feeling anything. I fast strictly but without my heart. I tithe as an obligation or because the church needs me to tithe. Service is an obligation. I concern with non-spiritual aspects of church. This is an all-time favorite. Fundraising, clergy politics. I love to talk about clergy, the bishops, whatever, everything's happening. Talk about depth, no thank you. But politics, love it. Boards. Take the Eucharist as a routine, asking what's the minimum? When does church end? And then work backwards. When does the fast end? Then work backwards. Right? I'm looking for the minimum. Right? And that's a symptom of just being a part of Orthodox participation. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. So what's the depth? What am I talking about? What is entering the depth? Is it learning a lot of things? History, theology, rituals, dogma, hymns, Bible verses. Is that what it is? Is that the depth of the life with God? Learning stuff? There's actually a heresy in the first century, Gnosticism. That was the heresy. The heresy was learn a lot of things, and that's depth with God. And the church declared it as a heresy. Because knowledge, it isn't about knowledge, right? You guys know a guy named St. Anthony? He was what? Illiterate. What did he read? What did he know? Nothing. He learned it from nature. He learned it by talking to God and listening. More eminent scholar and theologian than anyone else. So clearly, learning theology and hymns and rituals and all of these things, these are all good things, but we have to be very careful. They can't be an end to themselves. And so many of you guys get sucked into it. I'll take a couple of classes, I'll learn a bunch of stuff, I want to teach people, I want to know things, I want to be the man, I want to be the woman, I want to be the scholar. And it's dangerous because it's not the real deal. And so think about, what's the end here? What am I trying to get to? How do you get deep with another person? How do you get deep in any relationship? You share. You open up. Right? You let yourself be vulnerable to that person. That's how any relationship works. You keep secrets, you're not close to somebody. Right? That's where we have to find ourselves going. All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to skip those first few bullets. I'm going to today do something a little different than I normally do. I'm going to discuss things that are not deep. And usually I like to point to the light as opposed to the darkness, but I think pointing to the darkness every once in a while is edifying. So I want to talk about what's not depth, that we sometimes think it is. Excessive focus on rituals, Phariseeism, a real problem. Excessive focus on imitation vis-a-vis tradition as opposed to tradition, problem. Excessive focus on politics and macro morality, problem. So these are three things. I'm going to talk about each one of them in turn. Sorry. That are not deep, but people think are deep. And every once in a while, you'll say, you know what, I'm going to really get into church. And what happens? They really get into church. Church is what? The body of Christ. But I'm not into Christ. I'm not into Jesus. What do you think I am, Protestant? I'm in a church. I'm in orthodoxy. And that's a problem. What depth is not Phariseeism? I want to read you this great quote. The law itself is good, but the trap is this. If we take obeying the law as a condition for salvation, which many of us fall into, we are saying salvation comes not from God's freely given love, but from our own deeds. I earned it. I worked for it. The two modes of thought are directly opposed to each other. Either it's a free gift from God or I earned it. And heaven help you if you think you earned it. Then nobody can save you. Because as soon as you walk into a church and you have that feeling that I struggled more than the next guy. I worked harder than the next guy. I fasted and I attended more services than the next guy. You can't be saved. You have no chance. Because you think you deserve heaven. And God help you. God can't save that kind of person. And unfortunately, we have that kind of thinking all over the place. That somehow we earn this thing. And that fasting is something God wants me to do, and I do it for Him, and He's really happy when I do. And He's like, wow, that's like 17 points right there. He didn't even eat Taco Bell cheese. Great. So let's think about what the Pharisees did wrong. So, of course, Jesus talked about the 7 woes to the Pharisees, and I'm not going to go through them here, but He kept saying, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, for you clean the outside of the cup, but the inside of the cup is filthy, and woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. And there's 7 these woes that are just kind of really, strike you. And what I would encourage all of you to do, especially if you have a paper Bible, like a physical Bible, is every time it says scribe and Pharisee, I want you to scratch it out and write your name above it. And usually it flies. It works pretty good when you do that. But when you look at what they did wrong, the answer is mostly nothing. They followed God's commandments to the letter. Now, true, there was a lot of human tradition that they added, and that's a problem. But many of the things they did was executing on God's commandments, and they did it better than anybody else. They were more zealous than anybody else. They did exactly what God told them to do. And so the question is, why did Jesus condemn them? If all they were doing was everything that the Mosaic law says and everything else. And so I want you to think about that question, right? Is it possible that you're so right that you're very, very wrong? Could you be so right in the rituals, so right in your righteousness, so right in executing everything so perfectly that my heart is full of condemnation, judgment of other people, thinking I'm better than everybody else, thinking I'm saving myself by doing all this stuff? Next thing you know, you're in la la land. You're no longer a Christian, right? You've put yourself in a completely different place. This is a very dangerous state. Because I'll tell you what, nobody who thinks God saved them is arrogant and prideful. And it's really, really hard to judge other people when you know who you are and what you are. The only people that judge other people are what? People think they earned it. People think they're better because they did something. Father Seraphim Rose, if you don't know this guy, he's awesome. I want you to listen to this quote. Now, he talks about zealots. We don't have to, or converts. We don't have too many converts in our church, but we have a few. He says, no matter how right you may be on various points, and he puts it in quotes, you must be diplomatic. Also, the first and important thing is not rightness at all, but Christian love and harmony. Most crazy converts have been right in the criticisms that led to their downfall. But they were lacking in Christian love and charity, and so went off the deep end, needlessly alienating people around them, and finally finding themselves all alone in their rightness and self-righteousness, don't you follow them. Now, we don't have crazy converts, but we have crazy people. Lots of them. And they're so busy being right in their self-righteousness. And as he says, in their rightness and self-righteousness, and he says, don't you follow them. We have to be careful as an Orthodox church, because our worship as being structured lends itself to this misinterpretation of how to execute religion, Christianity. I love this quote. Rules inform or condemn. An encounter with God, God's love goes deep and heals. A wonderful litmus test you can always apply is if a conversation with someone ends and you feel condemned, it was rule-based. But if you feel healed and transformed by God's love, inspired, hopeful, then it was the right message, because that was Jesus' message. And every once in a while, we love to just weaponize God, weaponize the Bible, weaponize verses against each other. Use God as a weapon of hate. Tell you why you're bad. Tell you what you did wrong. And just focus so much on that. It's not okay. And it's not what Jesus did. In the Wisdom of Solomon, it says, the products of righteousness are the virtues. And we're often taught the other way around. Virtues produce righteousness. But the Bible got it right all along. Doing good things, virtues, doesn't make you good, righteousness. I'll say it again. Doing good things doesn't make you good. And that's an important distinction that sometimes we lose in the church. We're kind of hardwired to do good things, and then that makes us good. I did this many good things. I followed all the rules. So what? You want a cookie? No, that means I'm good. No, it doesn't. Christ's righteousness, you're hidden in Christ's righteousness. Don't think for a second that that made you good. I love this kid. It's unfair that his picture's up here. So I did a little YouTube or a little Googling how to play the cymbals. He looks like he's constipated. He just does. The importance of your tonya. How to fold a tonya. Is it yummy? Every now and then, you get really excited when you discover a product that is enjoyable to eat and still conforms to the requirements of the Coptic Orthodox fast. Just like the day when I discovered Oreos were yummy. I tricked God. He doesn't know that I really like them. Is this where we're at? Orthodox kitchen? So, God is about, you know what? I used to eat bezbusa, but now I eat bezbusa without butter. For 55 days, I have bezbusa without butter. Dang, I'm killing it. And I don't think God knows. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing? At what point have we become Pharisees? At what point are we focused on the wrong things? At what point does some poor little kid thinks he folded his tonya and knows how to play the cymbals, thinks he's righteous and better than the others? At what point do kids exclude other kids because they're not deacons? They're not part of the in crowd. At what point do we realize that's not even Christian behavior? My God, what have we taught these kids? Why are they acting like this? What did they see in us and the way we're acting that made them do something like that? I love Saint Maria of Paris. She's one of the stickers that some of you got. Christ, who approached prostitutes, tax collectors, and sinners, can hardly be the teacher of those, and this is the part I like, who are afraid to soil their pristine garments, who are completely devoted to the letter, who live only by the rules and who govern their whole life according to the rules. We have to be careful. Jesus wasn't like that. He didn't achieve righteousness by obeying the rules. In fact, he sort of kind of went out of his way to just, heal someone on the Sabbath. Just to let them know that man was made for the Sabbath and the Sabbath was not made. Man was not made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for the man. All right. What depth is not? Blind imitation. Those are a bunch of dogs chasing a bunny. You guys know that there's like these hunting dogs that do this? All right, so there's a saint, Saint Hilarion, the father of Palestinian monasticism. He's really quite amazing. He has this wonderful analogy, and I love this analogy because I first heard it in a sermon by Bunab Shoy Kamel, the Bunab Shoy Kamel in Alexandria, the saint. And he would talk about this story, and then I found out that Saint Hilarion told the story a couple centuries earlier. Bear with me, it's kind of long. He says, consider the hunting dog. So, back in the day, we had hunting dogs that chased hares, rabbits. Consider the hunting dogs which chase after hares. Imagine one of these dogs sees a rabbit in the distance and immediately gives chase. So you can see the image, dog sees rabbit, rabbit runs, dog chases rabbit. The other dogs that are with him see this dog taking off and take off after him. So all the dog, nobody wants to be left out. Everyone's got FOMO, right? So they see dog take off, they take off. They think he's onto something good, right? He's got a big fat bunny in his sight, right? And even though they have not seen the hare, they still run. They will continue running with him. These are the other dogs, but only for a time. When at length the effort and struggle exhaust them, they give up the chase and turn back. So what's he saying is that the other dogs, after a while, stop running. Does that remind you of anything I just said? The parables. When the wind comes and the storm hits, the house on the sand falls. And when the sun comes up and scorches, the seeds that went on the rocks withered. Same story. When the dogs get tired after running, they just stop running. Why? They never saw the bunny. They just saw the butt of the dog in front of them. And you can only chase someone's butt for so long. I'll stop. Okay. I'm being recorded, right? Okay. However, I don't know why they asked me to do these things. However, the dog that saw the rabbit continues chasing it by himself. He does not allow the effort or the struggle to hinder him from completing his long course. He risks his life as he goes on, giving himself no rest. He does not allow, and this is important, the turning aside of the other dogs behind him to put him off. So even though he sees other dogs falling by the side and going, forget this, I'm not chasing anymore, I'm done. He saw the bunny. He still sees the bunny. He's going to continue. And that's the difference, guys, in longevity as a Christian. If you're just chasing the dog in front of you, the wind comes and the sun comes out and you just give up. You have to see the bunny. You have to see Christ. And when you do, you don't give up. You don't stop, ever. And it never gets boring. It never gets tiring. It's only an all-out charge towards Him. Right? That's the life of Christianity. That's what Christ wants from us. That's what Christ wants from us, to give us. He doesn't need us. He came to give, not take. You don't offer anything to God. All right, I'll end that quote. So I want to talk quickly about tradition. So the first thing we have to understand is that the church tradition, big T tradition, is a sacred part of the church. It's extremely important. It's the only thing that keeps us anchored, right? You all know that right now in America, there's like 10,000 different sects of Christianity. Each one claims to be the right one. Of course, we all know we are. Okay? So what happened? Why did the churches divide the way they do? Right? It all kind of makes its way back to the days of Martin Luther. And Martin Luther posted 95 theses on the door of the Catholic Church that most were right. But the one thing he did is he cut with tradition. And as soon as he did, that ship just started floating like a ship that lost its anchor. And what happened is the churches started subdividing on themselves, right? I mean, you couldn't just be Baptist, you had to be a Southern Baptist, right? And I mean, I had a professor once in college. He's like, he was raised Southern Baptist, and he said, I left the church when our pastor at church said, Baptists don't go to heaven, only Southern Baptists go to heaven, right? So you thought we were bad. No, it gets worse, right? And so what happens when we lose tradition is we lose that anchor that keeps us grounded to the apostles themselves. So I'm going to give you some examples of the holy tradition. These are all big things that we do in the church that are not in the Bible. First thing, praying on Sundays. The Bible says keep the Sabbath holy. It doesn't say anything about Sunday. We changed it to Sunday because Jesus resurrected on a Sunday. So we said, we're going to make the holy day Sunday and not Saturday. Facing east when we pray. The ceremony of marriage, of matrimony, it's not in the Bible. The ceremony of a funeral, not in the Bible. Making the sign of the cross, triple immersion in baptism, the prayers of the Egbeya, fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays. None of these things are in the Bible. This is all part of our tradition. This is the life of the church. Many of these things from the very first centuries of Christianity. So tradition is an extremely important part of the life of the church. So the question is, this apostolic, sacred, living tradition, is it dead or is it alive? And that's the question. Is the tradition of the church dead or alive? And I argue tradition is alive and not dead. In the church's history, when you read the history of the church, you find so many instances where the church changed many things because of the circumstances on the ground. Stuff will happen, and then the church changes the way it approaches things, right? For example, in the early centuries, if you wanted to get baptized, would the church baptize you? Just like that. Why? Because after you got baptized, good chance you'll get killed. Right? Persecution in the church. Where did Christians pray in the early centuries? Underground, in catacombs. And as soon as the soldiers were kind of noticing a bunch of people walking into catacombs, where dead people are buried, if they figured out where the church was, the first thing they did is kill the bishop. Strike the shepherd and the sheep scatter. And then they killed everyone in that church. So you can imagine if someone shows up and says, I really want to be a Christian, the church is like, yeah, knock yourself out, right? Because you're probably pretty serious. So what happens in 313 AD? Edict of Milan. Constantine declares Christianity as one of the state religions. Boom. What happens? Emperor's Christian. You want to get promoted? Be Christian. You want to rise in politics? Be Christian. You want to get a good job in the government? Be Christian. That's the trendy thing to do. What happened? Everyone became Christian. Everyone. And now you've got a bunch of pagans, you got a bunch of philosophers, you got all atheists, everyone saying, yeah, I'm a Christian. Okay? So now what happens? The church is flooded with people who have no intention of being Christian, don't know anything about it, like, yeah, baptize me. So the church says, you know what, we got to slow down. We're going to change everything. You want to be baptized? 3 years. 3 years of classes. We're going to invent this new word called catechumens. That means you haven't been baptized, but you're still learning about the church. We're going to add a part to the liturgy of the word, the liturgy of catechumens. We're just a teaching part of the liturgy. That's just for the catechumens. They can attend this part because it's teaching. What did the church do? It changed on a dime. Now imagine today if that happened. People would say, you can't do that. We've never had catechumens before. We've never done this before. We've never waited 3 years before. So why would you do it now? Well, because we never had an influx of people before. And now we do. Church history is full of this kind of change. Why? Tradition is alive. We're not a museum. We're not a place to go see old things. We do not relish in being old. Old is not a very good characteristic. It just means you're going to die soon. And lose your hair. So being old isn't No, no, no. I don't want to be old. I want to be with Christ. I want to worship him the way he wants me to worship him. That's what I want. Okay. He says that this book, I'll tell you in a second, the term traditional theology can also denote a dead theology if it means identifying traditionalism with simple repetition. Tradition and repetition are different words. Tradition and imitation are different words. We tend to think imitation is the same as tradition. It is not. He says, in fact, dead traditionalism cannot be truly traditional. It is an essential character. This is a great book on this topic, by the way, if you want to read more about it. It's called Living Tradition by John Meindorf. He says, it is an essential characteristic of patristic theology that it was able to face the challenges of its own time while remaining consistent with its faith. Thus, to repeat what the fathers said is to be unfaithful to their spirit and the intention embodied in the theology. What does that mean? That means that the fathers, they were open-minded. The fathers were dynamic. The fathers got excommunicated. The fathers got exiled. These guys got beaten. These guys were radicals. A lot of them were radicals. They got excommunicated by their own church. Okay? They weren't closed-minded people. Sometimes you think, oh, the fathers are boring. And no, they're not at all. They're exciting. Right? You just have to read them. And imitating them and repeating what they said is inconsistent with their theory, with their own being traditional. Right? Because what's basically happening is the fathers will come back and say, look, why are you saying the same things I said in the 3rd century? I was dealing with a particular problem. You have a different problem. Why are you dealing with your problem? Why are you still talking about this council from the 4th century when you should be talking about your issues? You guys have different issues. You're still quoting me about this other stuff? No one's debating that stuff anymore. That stuff has been settled by Christianity at large. True tradition is always a living tradition. It changes while remaining always the same. I'll give you guys an example, story. One time at our church, so we do most of our stuff in English. A deacon came from another church. He's actually a good friend of mine. He's what I call super deacon. He's really good. And I asked him to do the litany of the gospel. Right? So he did the litany of the gospel, and when he came in, you guys know, he came inside, and then he said, Stasite metavovotheo kosumento agiu evangelio. Okay? And then he comes up to me and he goes, hey, sorry, I didn't know it in English, so I just said it. I said, oh, I don't care, it's fine. I mean, we don't shoot you in the face, right? It's okay. And then I asked him, I said, what does Stasite metavovotheo kosumento agiu evangelio mean? And he goes, yeah, I don't know. And he's like a 25-year-old mega guy. And I said, well, if you don't know, why do you make that face? He goes, what face? I go, the face that everyone makes. Stasite metavovotheo akosomento agio. And you got a face. You're angry, you're pissed off, something's wrong. And he's like, I don't know why we make the face, but you got to make the face. You got to hold the cross and make the face. That's what we do. Right? So I told him, I said, Stasite metavovotheo means stand up in the fear of God. We're going to listen to the gospel. Can everyone please stand up? We're going to listen to the gospel to be respectful. He goes, oh. I said, that's an instruction to the congregation. You're telling them to stand up in case someone's sitting down. I said, does it make sense that you're telling them to stand up and you don't know what you're saying? He's like, not really. I said, okay, so do the people you're instructing to stand up, do they know what you're saying? And he goes, no. I go, so let me get this right. You're telling them, and you don't know what you're saying, an instruction, and they don't know what you're saying. Yeah. I said, okay. What do you think how do you say Stasite in Coptic? And he says, well, that is Coptic. I said, no, it's Greek. He says, really? I said, yeah, do you know why? It used to be in Coptic, but we changed it. You know why? Because no one understands Coptic. The people were speaking Greek at the time. So the church, being very traditional, open-minded, smart, goes, oh, wait a minute, everyone's speaking Greek. Let's just change it to Greek. Okay, let's change it to Greek. No problem. Duh, no brainer. And so now we're talking to them in Greek, even though they don't speak Greek. He goes, wow. I said, it gets better. the Greek of stasite is ancient Greek. So if the church was full of Greek people, they still wouldn't understand what you're saying. No one alive on earth understands that sentence. That's imitation. And yet, there are people, unfortunately, who think that's traditional. That is not traditional. That is imitation. That's not what we do. That's dead. Okay. That was fun. How much time do I have? 5 minutes? You started late, bro. All right. Finally, what depth is not: macro morality and political, religious politics. We love this in the church. That's politics. Christ is king. Trump is president. I'm going to try not to get in trouble, but that will not happen. Stand up for religious freedom, and those two guys. Every once in a while, we have the mistaken thought that God really cares about the Senate. And we got to win Congress. Okay, who's we? Jesus. And that somehow politics has something to do anything, although despite everything Jesus said, with politics. Right? In fact, even when there was injustice, right? Romans conquer another country, kill a bunch of people, take a bunch of money. Not nice. And then people try to get Jesus to bite. Hey, is that nice? Should I pay those taxes to those conquering horrible people? And Jesus still didn't bite, did he? He said, we give to Caesar what's Caesar's. My kingdom isn't of this world. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You guys are going to fight forever. That's what politics does. That's what you guys do. I'm not about this stuff. I didn't come to establish a kingdom here. I don't really care about here. This is a fallen world. You guys fight all the time. All right, so I'll try to go quickly because Matthew told me 5 minutes. Okay, so Christianity teaches micro-morality. And I'd heard this in a speech, and I really loved the way he said it. We transform the world by focusing on ourselves. This is the way Christianity is. Jesus said, be a light to the world. So you work on being a light, and then you transform the world. I don't transform the world by being a part of it and trying to work through it. And I don't gauge my morality by the number of political actions that I follow, right? So maybe I want to end injustice. I want to end racism. I want to end gay people. I want to end whatever thing you want to end, right? I want to save the turtles. I want to save the ducks. I want to save the seals, right? There's lots of good things, and I'm not saying don't do those things. If you feel strongly about a politician, go for it. You feel strongly about a cause, go for it. But don't think that's your morality. Don't think that's your religion. That's just a great thing to do. But that's not what we are called to be as Christians. This is not the depth of spiritual life in Christ. I think this guy thinks he's doing the right thing for Jesus. God hates you. These are religious zealots. And this is what happens when religion and politics mix. It's not good. Right? All of a sudden, God's involved in the Senate. And that's a problem. Mother Teresa says, do not wait for leaders to do it. Do it alone. Very important. Person to person. We don't change the world by changing the law. The law can say whatever the law wants. We change the world human to human, eye to eye, interaction to interaction, personally. Not by passing laws and says, if you do the wrong thing, I'll send you to jail. That doesn't create morality. I'll read you a quote from St. John Chrysostom, and then I'll end, because it's late. Of course, you guys are going to be up for the next 6 hours. I don't know why I'm ending in 5 minutes. Mohim. As if any of you are going to sleep for the next 8 hours. Like free time is until 1 or something crazy. Oh, Q&A. Okay. For Christians, above. All right, settle, people. St. John Chrysostom. I'm doing what I said I'm not supposed to do, which is just read what a father said. For Christians, above all men, settle, are forbidden to correct the stumblings of sinners by force. This is important, guys. We don't change people by force. We don't change people by passing laws. We don't change people by what is happening back there. FIANS. We don't change people by implementing rules and laws and say you have to act like this. That may implement morality or some kind of behavior, but it doesn't change hearts. He says that. He says, it is necessary to make a man better not by force, but by persuasion. We neither have authority granted us by law to restrain sinners. And I want you to hear this next part because believe me, it's inspired. He says, we don't have the law to restrain sinners, nor, if it were, should we know how to use it. We have to think about this statement a lot. Even if we had the law on our side, how do we use the law to restrain a sinner? He says we don't know how to use the law to restrain sinners because that's inconsistent with Christianity. Christianity is about a freedom of will, about following Christ, not about doing things. God gives the crown, since God gives the crown to those who are kept from evil, not by force, but by choice. So if I make someone moral by law, they aren't moral. They're just following the law. I just don't want to go to jail. And if the only reason I don't rob a bank is because I don't want to go to jail, I still kind of robbed the bank, didn't I? So we have to think about whether or not chasing politics is the depth of life in Christ. And sometimes we think it is, and I contend tonight that it's not really what Christ is looking from us. All right, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Archie Mark. That was a wonderful talk. Give it up one more time for Archie Mark. You are truly one of God's best mouthpieces. Love hearing you talk. Well, first off, I also want to give a shout out and a huge thank you to the clergy that have taken time out of their schedule to come and be with us. We have Father Daniel, Father Elijah, and Father Paul. Give it up for them. In fact, if you guys, this is a retreat, and we're trying to benefit from all the talks. So if you guys do feel that you guys have been impacted, we actually have a link in the app where you can actually book a confession appointment with the priest. So definitely check that out if that's something that's weighing on you. We encourage you to do that if you feel so. And hold on, there was another thing. Yes, but there was one more thing. Oh yeah, on the app as well. There's a link, activities, sign up. There's a soccer game, and then there's also a skit. You guys can sign up. Joseph Mikhail's in charge of the soccer game. I'm in charge of the skits. So if you guys want to get in touch with your artistic side, hit me up or sign up for the skit. And we also just want to remind you guys to stay hydrated and walk in groups at night so that you're not lost. And right now we're going to have icebreakers. So Joseph Mikhail, go ahead and kick us off. I'm going to pass out some papers for you guys. Thank you. Hello? Oh, one more thing. After the icebreakers, there's going to be a clergy Q&A for you guys to stand and ask any questions that you have to our clergy. And to Sony as well. Thank you. And Mary Van den Busch. Thank you.
talk to them? Hey guys, we're passing out the paper for the icebreaker right now. Please keep it face down so you can all start at the same time. Please, honor system.
Guys, keep the papers face down, please. Stop. Stop it. Papers face down. Stop. Don't look at it.